I found my father's watch under our bed. That was the moment I knew something was wrong with my marriage. It was a Tuesday. The kind of day that disappears into memory without leaving a mark. Overcast, quiet. I remember the hum of the dishwasher, the smell of rain through the open kitchen window, and the soft creak of the floorboards as I moved around the house. Sophie was out with her sister, some spa day they'd planned weeks ago. She left me a kiss on the cheek and a half-joking command not to burn the place down while she was gone. I laughed, told her I might even vacuum if she played her cards right. It felt normal. Comfortable. Safe. It wasn't. I was cleaning under the bed when I saw it. Wedged between the far leg of the headboard and the wall, a watch. Leather strap, scuffed edges, cracked face. My father's watch. It hit me like a punch to the ribs. I hadn't seen that watch in years. Thought he lost it when they moved to Arizona. It was one of those old school pieces that didn't hold much value, but he wore it like it was part of his skin. And now it was under my bed. At first, I didn't move. Just stared at it. My heart began to do this slow, cold thump. I picked it up. Turned it over. There it was, the scratch on the clasp, the faint initials on the back. M.A.S. My dad's name, Mark Andrew Sullivan. I sat down on the edge of the bed, still holding it. The walls felt closer than they had a second ago. My head buzzed. Why would Dad's watch be here? Maybe he dropped it last time he visited. Months ago. That had to be it. Right? But no, he never came upstairs. He'd thrown out his back and stayed on the downstairs couch the whole weekend. Never even saw the bedroom. Still, I held on to the idea like a life preserver. Maybe Sophie found it and put it here. That made sense. She knew he loved that watch. Maybe she meant to give it back and forgot. It wasn't impossible. I placed it in my drawer and closed it gently. But that night, when I asked her about it, her answer was a little too quick. Oh, that? Yeah, I found it in the laundry room a while back. Meant to give it to him but forgot. You know how I am. She smiled as she said it, folding laundry on the couch like nothing was off. But there was a flash of something in her eyes, a flicker of tension that hadn't been there before. Like she had rehearsed the answer. I nodded. Didn't press. She offered no explanation for how it got from the laundry room to under our bed. I didn't ask. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to her, staring at the ceiling, feeling the shape of the watch still in my hand. My father hadn't visited in months. The last time they saw each other was, I tried to remember. Christmas. The memory twisted in my gut. She had seemed off that day. Distracted. She'd burned the ham, which she never did. And she stayed close to my dad the entire evening, laughing too loudly at his jokes, leaning into him when he spoke. I hadn't thought much of it. My parents were charming people. Sophie always got along with them. Too well. No. I stopped myself. That was insane. But the next morning, she was in the shower when her phone buzzed. I don't usually check her messages, but something compelled me. Something I couldn't name. The name on the screen made my blood run cold. M.S. The message was short. Just 3 words. I miss you. I put the phone down. Walked out of the room. My hands were shaking. M.S. Mark Sullivan. My father. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. Needed to believe there was another answer. Maybe it was someone else. A coincidence. But deep down, something in me had already broken. That morning, I couldn't look Sophie in the eyes. She made pancakes. Blueberry, my favorite. Hummed while she flipped them, barefoot in one of my old college shirts, the hem brushing the tops of her thighs. She looked like the woman I married. But I couldn't stop seeing the message. I miss you. M.S. I sipped my coffee and nodded when she asked if I wanted seconds. I smiled when she kissed my cheek. I even helped with the dishes. But inside, something dark was curling its fingers around my lungs. I had questions I wasn't ready to ask. Because I wasn't sure I could handle the answers. That afternoon, I went to visit my mother. We sat on the back porch, drinking iced tea and watching the neighborhood kids ride their bikes up and down the hill. Mom's hair was pulled back in a bun, silver streaks glinting in the sun. You and Dad seemed good at Christmas, I said, trying to sound casual. She gave me a strange look. What makes you say that like it surprises you? I shrugged. Just remembering how he kept making Sophie laugh. I don't think I'd ever seen them talk that much. Her smile dimmed. Your father's always liked Sophie. You know that. Liked or really liked. The words were out before I could stop them. Mom turned her head sharply. What are you asking me, Nathan? I stared down at the condensation sliding down my glass. He ever give you a reason not to trust him? Silence. She sighed, long and slow, like she was blowing out something heavy. Your father has always had a weakness for attention. Especially from women who admire him. He likes to feel needed. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her next words were quieter. Whatever it is you think he's done, Nathan, you better be sure. Because once you know, you can't unknow. And you might not like the man you find on the other side of it. I left before the sun set. That night, I lay awake beside Sophie, watching the shadows crawl across our ceiling. Her breathing was steady. Peaceful. But I couldn't stop the reel playing in my head, the watch, the text, the Christmas dinner. The way my father had put his hand on her back as he passed her the wine. There were too many cracks now. The story we'd built was starting to show its fault lines. The next day, I called my cousin Adam. Adam was the kind of guy you only call when you're serious about finding something out. He worked tech security for a private firm and owed me more than a few favors. I need to know who this number belongs to, I said, reading out the digits from the M.S. text. He didn't ask why. Just said, give me a few hours. While I waited, I cleaned the garage. Fixed a squeaky cabinet door. Did anything I could to keep my hands busy. But my mind kept drifting to Sophie. What else was she hiding? By 4 p.m., Adam called back. That number's a prepaid burner. Bought in Tucson. No registered owner. But I traced the activation location. It pinged near your parents' old address. Not proof, but not a good look either. Tucson. Where Dad had lived before they moved back here last year. My stomach dropped. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat on the cold garage floor for a long time, just staring at the cement. I didn't want to believe it. So I gave myself a choice, walk away from the suspicion, or follow the thread until it snapped. That weekend, Sophie went to visit her sister again. Another spa weekend, she said. She kissed me goodbye, suitcase in hand, dressed casually, no makeup. But something was off. Her voice was too light. Her hug a second too short. I watched her drive away, then waited 20 minutes and followed. She didn't go to her sister's. She didn't even leave the city. She drove to a hotel. My heart pounded as I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, another car pulled in. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but the shape of him, tall, broad-shouldered, with a limp on the left leg. It was him. My father. He got out, glanced around, then entered the hotel through the side door. Less visible. Less suspicious. Except I was watching. They were inside for over 2 hours. I didn't move. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the hotel sign flickering in the dusk light, feeling something inside me calcify. When she finally came out, she was alone. No suitcase. Different clothes. Her hair pulled up. She looked flushed. Smiling. Like someone who just had a good time. I didn't follow her home. I sat there until night swallowed the streetlights. Then I drove somewhere I hadn't been in years. Back to my parents' house. Back to him. Back to the man who used to tuck me in at night. I stood outside his door with my fist raised, heart pounding, vision blurred. But I didn't knock. Not yet. Because when you knock on a door like that, it never closes the same again. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just kept the wheels turning under me, headlights cutting through the dark like I could outrun what I knew. Gas station coffee. A diner that never closed. Endless country roads. Anything to avoid going home. Because home didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage where I'd been cast in a play everyone else already knew the ending to. By sunrise, I was parked outside the house I grew up in. Dad's truck was in the driveway. Same dents, same faded bumper sticker from his Navy days. Everything about it was familiar. Too familiar. The front door creaked just like it always had. I stepped inside without knocking. That was our thing growing up, "This house is always yours," he'd say. The words tasted like ash now. He was in the kitchen. Same worn robe. Scrambled eggs hissing on the skillet. Like nothing in the world was wrong. He looked up and grinned. "Morning, kiddo. You're up early. Want some?" My hands curled into fists. "Where were you last night?" He froze. Just for a breath. Then the mask slipped back on. Late call from an old friend. Grabbed a drink, caught up. Why? I stepped closer. Felt the heat rising behind my ears. You sure it wasn't the Willow Creek Hotel? Room 217. His eyes flicked up. Just for a moment. Then he smiled. Slowly. You following me now? That's a little intense, even for you. Answer the question. He wiped his hands on a dish towel, walked to the sink. Nathan, whatever you think you saw, it's not like that. I laughed. A sharp, bitter thing that didn't sound like me. Not like what? You mean not like my wife and my father meeting at a hotel behind my back? Not like you lying to my face? He turned slowly, eyes harder now. You're jumping to conclusions. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me. Tell me what I'm missing. Because from where I stood, it looked a hell of a lot like you're screwing my wife. He looked at me for a long time. And then, without a flicker of guilt, he said. It started before Arizona. Silence. Like the air had been sucked from the room. Excuse me. He poured himself coffee. Calm. Almost bored. The first time was during your anniversary trip. The one to Charleston. She stayed behind because of work. Remember that? I stepped back, like his words were physical. You were supposed to check on her. Bring her dinner. Keep her company. He nodded, sipping. I did. I felt something crack. Visceral. Like a part of me tearing loose. Why? Why her? Why me? He shrugged. Because she needed something you stopped giving her. I saw red. Rushed forward. My fist connected with his jaw before I could think. He staggered back, dropped the mug. It shattered. Blood at the corner of his mouth. He didn't fight back. Just looked at me, like I was a disappointment. That make you feel better? Not even close. My voice was shaking. I turned to leave. His voice followed me. You never really saw her, Nate. Not the way I did. You saw the version of her that fit your life. She showed me the rest. I didn't respond. I didn't even slam the door. He wasn't worth the noise. I drove home around noon. Sophie was in the kitchen. Same smile. Same soft voice. Hey, you disappeared. Everything okay? I didn't answer. Just stared. She stepped closer, touched my arm. Nathan? How long? Her hand froze. What? How long have you been fucking my father? The words hit like bullets. She flinched, pulled her hand back like I burned her. That's not, you don't understand. Then explain it to me. Because I'd love to understand how the woman I married could crawl into bed with the man who raised me. She backed up, lips trembling. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. Tears welled in her eyes. Real ones. Maybe. You were distant. After your promotion, everything changed. You were always working, always tired. He listened. He saw me. Don't you dare make this my fault. Her face crumpled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. So how far is too far, Sophie? Was it when you took him to our bed? Was it when you lied about your sister? Or when you looked me in the eye and said you loved me, knowing full well you were sleeping with my father? She didn't answer. Just cried. And for the first time, I didn't care. Something inside me had gone still. Cold. I turned and walked to the bedroom. Packed a bag. Essentials. She followed me, pleading. Where are you going? We can talk about this. We can fix it. I zipped the bag. No. You broke it. As I reached the door, I paused. You and he deserve each other. I left her standing there. Crying in the ruins she created. I didn't go to a hotel. I drove to the lake. The one near Pine Hollow, where Sophie and I used to picnic when we were young and stupid and still believed that love was enough. The air was thick with the scent of pine and wet soil. A storm was brewing somewhere far off. You could feel it pressing on your skin. I parked under a canopy of trees and killed the engine. No music. No phone. Just silence. For the first time in weeks, I let it hit me. All of it. The betrayal wasn't just infidelity. It was annihilation. A quiet demolition of the two pillars I'd built my entire adult life on, my father, and my wife. They didn't just cheat on me. They erased me. Every laugh I'd shared with them. Every conversation. Every inside joke. Every holiday. All of it, poison. My father had always been larger than life. A man of war stories and wise advice, the kind who could fix your bike or your broken heart in the same afternoon. And Sophie. God, Sophie. She was my soft place. My peace. The one person I trusted to guard my blind spots. Now she was the blind spot. I sat by the lake until night swallowed the horizon. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just was. A hollow outline of a man, sitting in the ruins of what used to be his life. I stayed in a cabin I knew would be empty. Belonged to an old friend who'd moved to New Hampshire. The key was still under the stone rabbit by the porch. Inside, everything smelled like old cedar and dust. No Wi-Fi. No TV. Just me, the storm, and the silence. I slept for 13 hours. Woke up with a dry throat and a dream I couldn't shake, my father at my wedding, whispering something in Sophie's ear as they danced. She laughed, eyes closed, head against his shoulder. My best man. My bride. I walked outside, barefoot, stood in the rain and let it soak through my clothes. I needed it to wash something off. The lies. The years. The guilt I didn't even deserve to feel. By afternoon, I felt human enough to call someone. Tyler. Old college friend. Solid as concrete. He picked up on the second ring. Jesus, Nate. Where the hell are you? Alive. Pause. You don't sound it. I need a place. Just for a while. Done. My guest room's yours. I thanked him and didn't explain. He didn't ask. That's why I called him. Before I left the lake, I wrote a note. Not to Sophie. To myself. Do not let them shape your story. Do not let them be the ending. I folded it, placed it in my wallet. Because I knew what came next. The fallout. When I arrived at Tyler's, he handed me a beer and didn't say a word. We sat on his porch, watching the rain drip off the roof. Eventually, I said it. She slept with my father. He didn't react. Just exhaled slowly. You want me to hit him? I barked a laugh. The first real one in days. I already did. Good. Want me to hit her? No. Just keep me from doing something stupid. He nodded. You gonna divorce her? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. She hadn't called. Not once. Neither had my father. Which almost hurt more. Not even the courtesy of a denial. Just silence. Like I was a problem they hoped would solve itself. Like I was the inconvenience in their love story. 2 days later, I got a letter. Handwritten. From Sophie. I stared at it for an hour before opening it. Nathan. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't expect it. I'm writing because I owe you something I never gave you, the truth. It wasn't about sex. Not at first. Your father, he saw the cracks. He slid into them. And I let him. I thought I was strong. I thought I could keep it harmless. Emotional. But I was lying to myself. I betrayed you the moment I let him fill the spaces you didn't know had gone hollow. I don't know what to say that won't sound like another excuse. So I'll say this. You didn't deserve this. You were kind. Loyal. You loved me more than I ever deserved. And I destroyed that. Whatever you choose, I will carry the weight of this for the rest of my life. Sophie. I read it twice. Then I burned it. Because some truths don't get to live forever. Some truths need to be ash. 3 days after the letter, my phone rang. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But something in my gut told me I had to. I pressed it to my ear. Nathan. It was my mother. Her voice cracked like she'd aged a decade since I last saw her. I need to see you, she said. Please. I met her at a quiet park near the edge of town. The kind with creaky swings and forgotten benches. She sat on one, wrapped in a scarf, even though it wasn't cold. I know what happened, she said as I sat beside her. He told me everything. I braced for some kind of justification. Some attempt to make sense of the senseless. But she didn't try. I wish I could say I was surprised, she whispered. But I'm not. I turned toward her, eyebrows raised. She laughed bitterly. Your father always had a talent for selfish love. Charming, intoxicating, and completely empty underneath. She pulled something from her purse. A photograph. Old. Faded. It was him. Younger. Holding a woman who wasn't my mother. You were 6. I found this in his jacket pocket. That was the first time. I said nothing. What was there to say? I stayed, she continued. Because of you. Because I thought I could shield you from who he really was. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Turns out I was just delaying the explosion. I swallowed hard. Do you still love him? Her silence was louder than a scream. Finally, she said, I loved the man I thought he was. The version I built in my head to survive. We sat like that for a long time. The wind picked up. Somewhere, a dog barked. She turned to me, voice low. You have to decide who you want to be now, Nathan. Not as a husband. Not as a son. Just as you. It was the most terrifying thing anyone had ever said to me. I moved into a small apartment on the east side of town. Second floor. View of a gas station and an abandoned bookstore. But it was mine. I didn't take much. A chair. My record player. A box of mismatched dishes. Everything else reminded me of her. I kept the note in my wallet. Do not let them shape your story. I started therapy. First session, I said almost nothing. Second session, I told the therapist I wanted to kill them both. She nodded like she'd heard it 1,000 times. And if you did, she asked. Then I'd feel nothing. Would that be enough? It wasn't. So I kept going. Week after week, I spilled parts of myself I didn't know I still carried. The way Sophie used to hum while making pasta. The time Dad taught me how to drive stick in the empty school parking lot. The good things. The soft things. The ghosts. One night, I ran into Sophie. I was leaving the grocery store. She was standing by her car, fumbling with her keys. She looked thinner. Older. Like betrayal had aged her. Our eyes met. For a second, the world paused. Nathan, she whispered. Sophie. She stepped closer. Then stopped. I'm so sorry. I know. Pause. Are you okay? I thought about lying. Then I said, I'm getting there. She nodded. Eyes glassy. You look different. So do you. We stood like strangers who remembered a past life. Do you hate me? She asked. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. But I knew this, I didn't need her answer anymore. Or her apology. Or her guilt. She was no longer the ending to my story. Just a chapter one had finished. Fall came early that year. The leaves outside my apartment turned the color of rust and fire, blanketing the sidewalks in a quiet kind of grief. I watched them fall from my tiny kitchen window each morning, coffee in hand, wondering how many more parts of myself I would have to let go before I felt whole again. Some days, I made lists of things I had survived. The betrayal. The silence. The shame of believing I had missed it all. Other days, I didn't make lists. I just sat still. Stillness had become my rebellion. No more chasing closure. No more trying to decode apologies hidden in silence. I was learning to live in the after. It happened unexpectedly. A letter. No name on the envelope, just my address, scrawled in the messy handwriting I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. Inside was a single page. My father. Nathan. I don't expect forgiveness. This isn't for that. When you were born, I held you like the world might collapse if I let go. I don't know where I lost that version of myself. Maybe I never truly became him. Maybe I just wanted to be seen as more than your father. More than a man aging into irrelevance. That's not your fault. Nothing I did is your fault. You were a good son. You still are. I'm sorry I ever made you doubt that. Dad, asterisk asterisk. I read it once. Then again. And again. I didn't burn it. Not like Sophie's. I folded it neatly and slid it between the pages of an old photo album. Not out of sentiment. Out of necessity. Because part of healing, I was learning, was choosing what to carry forward. And what to set down. A month later, I went back to the lake. Same cabin. Same silence. But this time, I brought a notebook. Blank pages. I sat on the porch, pen in hand, and I wrote the first sentence. This is not a story about betrayal. This is a story about becoming. The words came slowly, like thawing ice. But they came. Memories, reframed. Pain, repurposed. Lessons carved into the bones of grief. I wrote about love. And loss. And how sometimes, the people who shape us most are the ones who hurt us worst. I wrote until the sun dipped below the trees and the sky turned the color of healing bruises. Then I closed the notebook, pressed it to my chest, and whispered something I hadn't said in months. Thank you. Not to them. To the version of myself that refused to die with the wreckage. The version that kept breathing. That chose to live. I saw Sophie again. Not by chance this time. It was late November. The air had that crisp bite that makes you think of endings. I was walking through the farmer's market, hands in my pockets, watching the last of the autumn produce disappear beneath wool scarves and gloved hands. And there she was. Not in some dramatic moment under storm clouds. Not in tears. Just there. She was standing by a stand of honey jars, speaking to an old woman who offered her a taste on a wooden spoon. Her laugh was quieter now. Not that big, showy laugh she used to use to fill silences. This one felt smaller. Honest. For a second, I just watched her. I wondered if she still dreamed in color. If she still slept with one hand on her chest, like she used to. If she missed me. If she hated herself. If she was healing, too. Then she turned and saw me. Our eyes met across bins of apples and jars of jam. And for the first time since everything, she smiled. Not a smile that asked for anything. Not forgiveness. Not attention. Just a quiet acknowledgement that we had both survived the same fire. I nodded. A slow, careful thing. Then I kept walking. Because not every moment needs a conversation. Some goodbyes are silent. Some love stories don't end in fire. They end in frost. And the slow thaw of two people learning to be whole without each other. I spent that winter rebuilding. Not my marriage. Not my family. Myself. I learned how to cook more than pasta. Took long walks in the snow. Adopted an old dog named Milo who had 3 legs and slept like a baby on my chest every night. I repainted the apartment walls. Soft grays and greens. Peaceful colors. I stopped asking why. I started asking what now. In February, I was invited to speak at a local bookstore. A small event. Just 10 people in folding chairs and a table of burnt coffee. But it was the first time I read my writing out loud. When I finished, a woman in the back raised her hand. She asked, "How did you forgive them?" The room went still. I looked down at my hands. I didn't. A pause. I forgave myself. For not seeing it sooner. For loving them anyway. For believing I had failed when, in truth, I had simply been lied to. There was a silence that followed. The good kind. A stillness that said, someone else needed to hear that too. Afterward, the woman came up to me. She wore a green coat, smelled like peppermint, and carried sadness in the corners of her eyes. "I left a man like your father," she whispered. I didn't say anything. I just hugged her. And in that moment, I realized something. Pain doesn't always isolate us. Sometimes, it makes us into lighthouses. Beacons for the broken. Proof that survival is not only possible, but beautiful. Spring didn't arrive all at once. It crept in, shyly. Buds on the trees, pale green shoots poking through thawed earth. The first morning birdsong after months of silence. It felt like the world was remembering how to be alive again. And so was I. One Saturday morning, I took Milo to the park. He limped beside me, tail wagging like he hadn't lost a step. The sun was warm on my shoulders, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't thinking about the past. I was just there. Present. A little girl ran past, laughing, chasing bubbles with a plastic wand. Her father followed behind, clumsy and smiling. I watched them for a moment longer than I meant to. Not with envy. With hope. Maybe one day, I'd be ready to build something like that again. That afternoon, I opened my email and found a message I almost didn't recognize. Subject: reading your story changed me. It was from someone who'd heard me speak at the bookstore. Her husband had cheated. Her father had too. She wrote about shame, silence, years of pretending nothing was wrong. She ended the message with 4 words. You helped me begin. I stared at that sentence for a long time. It undid something in me. Something nodded. Because I had been so focused on what ended, I hadn't seen what had begun. Not just the survival. The becoming. I started volunteering with a local support group. Small circle. Big stories. Some nights, all we did was sit in silence. Other nights, the pain poured out like rain from broken clouds. One man told us about his wife running off with his best friend. Another about a mother who loved vodka more than her children. A woman named Elise shared how she stayed married to a cruel man for 15 years because she was afraid of eating dinner alone. And every time they spoke, I felt the room getting lighter. Not because the pain was less. But because it was shared. Carried together. I told my story too. Not all at once. Not every detail. But enough. And when I did, a man in the back, mid-60s, quiet, looked up and said, I thought I was the only one. He wasn't. None of us are. One evening, after the group, I walked home through the rain. Not heavy. Just soft enough to make the streetlights glow. And I realized something. The worst thing they did to me wasn't the betrayal. It was making me believe I wasn't enough. That I had failed. That I hadn't been watching. That I should have seen it, stopped it, fixed it. But that wasn't the truth. The truth is, I loved them both. Fully. Honestly. And they failed me. But that doesn't make me less. It makes them smaller. I stopped under a street lamp, eyes closed, letting the rain fall over me like a blessing. And for the first time since it all began, I said it out loud. I forgive you. Not for them. For me. And then I whispered the words that mattered more. I forgive myself. The past didn't vanish. But it stopped defining me. I walked home with lighter steps, my dog beside me, the rain behind me, and the rest of my story waiting to be written. Not by them. By me.